Since humans first looked up at the stars, one question has never left our minds. Are we alone in the universe? Right at this very moment, there are billions of planets orbiting other stars, and many of them could have the right conditions for life. But alien life is not just about little green men in flying saucers. We are talking about bacteria in frozen oceans, creatures floating in the clouds of giant planets, and maybe even advanced civilizations trying to find us the same way we are searching for them. The truth is that life could exist in places we never imagined, using chemistry completely different from ours, and scientists are discovering new signs and possibilities every single day. Could we have already received alien messages without realizing it? Could there be forms of life so different that we would not even recognize them as life? What if the answer to our cosmic loneliness is closer than we think? Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment what part of the world you are watching from. Get comfortable and relax. Let us begin. Tonight we are going to talk about something that has occupied human minds for as long as there have been humans to wonder. Something that sits at the edge of what we know and what we can only imagine. We are going to explore the possibility, the science, and the strange, quiet hope that somewhere out there, beyond the thin veil of our atmosphere, beyond the familiar lights we call planets and stars, there might be others. Not little green figures in silver suits necessarily, though we will talk about why that image took hold, but life. In forms we recognize and forms we do not. In places we expected and places that would have seemed impossible just decades ago. We are going to move slowly through this question, letting each idea unfold without rush, because this is not a topic that demands urgency. It asks for patience, for wonder, and for the kind of curiosity that does not need immediate answers. If you are listening to this as you settle into rest, then you are in the right place. Let your thoughts drift where they will. Let the questions sit gently in your mind. There is no test at the end, no need to remember every detail. This is simply an invitation to think about life beyond Earth, to consider what it might mean, and to marvel at how far we have come in even asking the question seriously. For most of human history, the question of whether we are alone in the universe was not scientific. It was philosophical, religious, mythological. Ancient peoples looked up at the stars and imagined gods, spirits, and distant realms, but the idea that those points of light might be other worlds with their own inhabitants was rare and often ridiculed. Even as astronomy advanced and we began to understand that stars were distant suns, the leap to imagining life around them remained speculative at best. It was not until the 20th century, and especially the latter half of it, that the search for alien life became something scientists could discuss openly without risking their reputations. And now, in the early decades of the 21st century, the question has shifted from whether alien life might exist to where we should look first and what tools we need to find it. This shift is profound. It reflects not wishful thinking, but the weight of evidence. The discovery of thousands of planets around other stars, the detection of organic molecules in space, and the realization that life on Earth thrives in conditions once thought too extreme to support biology. We have learned that life is tougher, stranger, and more adaptable than we imagined. And if it can survive in the crushing depths of our oceans, in boiling acidic springs, and in frozen Antarctic lakes buried under ice, then perhaps it can survive out there too. Perhaps it already does. When we talk about alien life, we need to be clear about what we mean. The term covers an extraordinary range of possibilities. At one end, there is simple microbial life, single-celled organisms that might exist in the subsurface oceans of icy moons or in the soil of Mars. These would be life forms without thoughts, without tools, without awareness of the universe around them. Just chemistry doing what chemistry does when conditions allow, organizing itself into patterns that consume energy, reproduce, and persist. At the other end of the spectrum, there is intelligent life, beings capable of thought, culture, technology, and perhaps communication across the stars. In between, there is everything else. Multicellular organisms, plant-like and animal-like creatures, ecosystems of staggering complexity, perhaps even forms of life so different from what we know that we might not recognize them as alive at first glance. When scientists talk about the search for extraterrestrial life, They are usually focused on the simpler end of this spectrum, not because intelligent aliens are uninteresting, but because microbial life is far more likely to be widespread. If we find even a single bacterium on Mars or detect biochemical signatures in the atmosphere of a distant exoplanet, it would revolutionize our understanding of biology, chemistry, and our place in the cosmos. It would tell us that life is not a fluke, not an accident that happened once on one small planet, but a natural outcome of the laws of physics and chemistry, something that emerges wherever conditions allow. And if life is common, then the universe is not a sterile void punctuated by one lonely island of biology. It is a cosmos teeming with living things, most of them small and simple, but alive nonetheless. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. Before we can search for alien life, we need to understand what life is. This might sound straightforward, but it is one of the most vexing questions in biology. We know life when we see it, at least on Earth. It moves, it grows, it reproduces, it responds to its environment. But when we try to define it precisely, the edges get fuzzy. Viruses, for example, reproduce and evolve, but they cannot do so without hijacking the machinery of a living cell. Are they alive? Fire consumes fuel, grows and spreads, but we do not call it life. Crystals grow and replicate their structure, but they are not alive. The definitions we use, metabolism, reproduction, evolution, homeostasis, are helpful but not absolute. They describe what life does rather than what life is. And this matters when we search for it elsewhere, because if life on another world operates by different rules, uses different chemistry, or organizes itself in ways we have never seen, we might not recognize it even if it is right in front of us. Some scientists propose that life is best understood as a process rather than a thing. It is a pattern that emerges when energy flows through a system in a way that creates order and complexity. By this definition, life is not about specific molecules like DNA or proteins, but about the ability to harness energy, maintain a boundary between self and environment, and replicate information across generations. This broader view opens the door to forms of life radically different from our own, and it forces us to think carefully about what we are looking for when we point our telescopes and spacecraft toward other worlds. Here is the first fact about alien life, and it is a humbling one. We do not know if it exists. After decades of searching, after sending probes to Mars and the outer planets, after scanning the skies for radio signals and studying thousands of exoplanets, we have not found definitive evidence of life beyond Earth. Not a single microbe, not a single signal, not a single chemical signature that cannot be explained by non-biological processes. This absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, as the saying goes, but it does tell us something. It tells us that if life is out there, it is not obvious. It is not broadcasting its presence in ways we can easily detect, at least not yet. It also tells us that we are still early in the search, that our tools are still crude, and that the universe is unimaginably vast. Even if life is common, finding it is like searching for a handful of grains of sand scattered across an entire planet. The odds are daunting, but that has not stopped us from looking, and there are reasons to be hopeful. Every year, we learn more about the conditions that support life, the environments that exist on other worlds, and the signatures that life might leave behind. We are building better telescopes, sending more sophisticated spacecraft, and developing new techniques for detecting biosignatures in the atmospheres of distant planets. The search for alien life is no longer a fringe endeavor. It is one of the central questions of modern science, pursued by researchers across multiple disciplines, from astronomers to chemists to biologists. And while we have not found life yet, we have found something almost as important. We have found that the universe is full of places where life could exist. Consider this second fact. There are more planets in the universe than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth. This is not hyperbole. It is a conservative estimate based on what we have learned in recent decades. Our galaxy alone, the Milky Way, contains somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. For a long time, we did not know if planets were common or rare. We knew about the planets in our own solar system, but beyond that, it was guesswork. Then, in the 1990s, astronomers began detecting planets around other stars, and the floodgates opened. At first, the planets we found were strange, massive gas giants orbiting close to their stars, nothing like the orderly system we know. But as our techniques improved, we found smaller planets, rocky planets, planets in the so-called habitable zone, where conditions might allow liquid water to exist on the surface. Today, we know of more than 5,000 confirmed exoplanets, and the true number is certainly far higher. Based on data from missions like Kepler and TESS, astronomers estimate that nearly every star in the galaxy has at least one planet. That means hundreds of billions of planets in our galaxy alone, and there are hundreds of billions of galaxies in the observable universe. The numbers quickly become incomprehensible, even if only a tiny fraction of those planets have conditions suitable for life. Even if life emerges on only one in a million worlds, the universe should still be teeming with living things. This realization, sometimes called the principle of mediocrity or the Copernican principle, suggests that Earth is not special. We orbit an average star in an average part of an average galaxy. If life emerged here, why not elsewhere? But the sheer number of planets is only part of the story. The third fact is that planets come in an astonishing variety. When we imagined other worlds before we could see them, we tended to think they would be like the planets we knew. Rocky worlds like Earth and Mars, gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn. What we found was far stranger. There are planets called hot Jupiters, gas giants that orbit so close to their stars that their atmospheres are scorched to thousands of degrees. There are super Earths, rocky planets larger than our own but smaller than Neptune, a type of world that does not exist in our solar system at all. There are ocean worlds, planets covered entirely in deep water with no land in sight. There are rogue planets, drifting through interstellar space untethered to any star. There are planets that orbit binary star systems with two suns in their sky. There are planets made largely of carbon, where instead of silicate rocks, you might find diamonds and graphite. There are planets with atmospheres so thick they create crushing surface pressures, and planets with atmospheres so thin they are barely there at all. There are tidally locked planets, where one side always faces their star in eternal day, while the other side is locked in perpetual night. Some planets orbit pulsars, the spinning remnants of dead stars, bathed in radiation. Others orbit red dwarfs, small cool stars that burn for trillions of years. This diversity is staggering, and it challenges our assumptions about where life might arise. If planets can be so varied, then the conditions that support life might be equally varied, and life itself might take forms we have never considered. The fourth fact is one that gives the search for alien life much of its foundation. Life on Earth is carbon-based, and carbon is everywhere in the universe. In fact, carbon is one of the most abundant elements in the cosmos, forged in the hearts of stars and scattered across space when those stars die. Carbon is special because of its chemistry. Each carbon atom can form strong bonds with up to 4 other atoms, allowing it to create an enormous variety of complex molecules. These molecules, organic compounds, are the building blocks of life as we know it. Amino acids, which link together to form proteins, nucleotides, which link together to form DNA and RNA, lipids, which form the membranes that enclose cells, sugars, which store and transfer energy. All of these molecules are built on a carbon backbone, and all of them are found not just on Earth, but in meteorites, in comets, and in the vast clouds of gas and dust that float between the stars. We have detected amino acids in space, the same ones that make up proteins in living cells. We have found complex organic molecules in the atmospheres of Titan and in the dust of distant star-forming regions. This does not mean we have found life, but it does mean that the chemistry of life, the raw ingredients, are universal. Wherever carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur come together in the right conditions, the potential for organic chemistry exists. And where organic chemistry exists, the potential for life may not be far behind. But here is the fifth fact, and it opens the door to something even stranger. Life does not have to be carbon-based, at least not in theory. Carbon is the most versatile element for building complex molecules, but it is not the only one. Silicon, which sits directly below carbon on the periodic table, shares some of carbon's bonding properties. It too can form chains and rings, and there are scientists who speculate that in environments where carbon is scarce but silicon is abundant, life might use silicon as its backbone instead. Such life would be radically different from anything on Earth. Silicon bonds are weaker than carbon bonds and break down more easily in the presence of water, so silicon-based life would probably need a very different solvent, perhaps liquid methane or ammonia instead of water. It might exist on frigid worlds where water is frozen solid. It might metabolize entirely different substances and leave entirely different chemical traces. This is speculative, and no evidence of silicon-based life has ever been found, but the point is important. When we search for life, we tend to look for chemistry like our own, because that is what we understand. But the universe may be more creative than we are. There may be forms of life out there that do not fit our definitions, that use different elements, different solvents, different energy sources. If we are too narrow in our search, we might miss them entirely. Some researchers even propose that life could exist without chemistry at all, perhaps as patterns of information encoded in plasma or magnetic fields. Though such ideas remain firmly in the realm of speculation. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we do not know, and how vast the possibilities truly are. The sixth fact is about water, and it is central to almost every discussion of alien life. Water is essential to life as we know it. Every living thing on Earth, from bacteria to blue whales, depends on water. It is the solvent in which biochemistry happens, the medium through which molecules move and interact. Water has unique properties that make it ideal for life. It is liquid over a wide range of temperatures. It dissolves a vast array of substances. It expands when it freezes, allowing ice to float and insulating the liquid below. Because water is so crucial to Earth life, the search for alien life has focused heavily on finding water elsewhere, and we have found it in astonishing abundance. There is water ice on Mars, water vapor in the atmospheres of exoplanets, and vast subsurface oceans on moons orbiting Jupiter and Saturn. Water is not rare in the universe. It is one of the most common molecules, made of hydrogen and oxygen, two of the most abundant elements. Wherever we look, from comets to interstellar clouds to the polar caps of the moon, we find water. This is encouraging because it means that one of the key requirements for life as we know it is widely available. But it also raises questions. If water is common and life needs water, then why have we not found life yet? Perhaps life needs more than water. Perhaps it needs the right temperature, the right chemistry, the right sources of energy, and the right amount of time. Or perhaps we have not looked in the right places yet. Or perhaps life is there but too small, too hidden, or too different for us to recognize. The seventh fact brings us to Earth itself, because before we can understand life elsewhere, we need to understand how life began here. And the truth is, we do not fully know. The origin of life on Earth remains one of science's greatest unsolved mysteries. We know that Earth formed roughly 4.5 billion years ago, and we have evidence of life dating back at least 3.5 billion years. That means life arose relatively quickly, within the first billion years of the planet's existence, possibly much sooner. But how? The leading hypothesis is that life emerged from non-living chemistry, a process called abiogenesis, somewhere on the early Earth, perhaps in a shallow pool warmed by volcanic heat, or in the depths of the ocean near hydrothermal vents. Simple organic molecules began to interact. Amino acids linked into chains, nucleotides formed primitive genetic material, lipids assembled into membranes that enclosed and protected these molecules. At some point, this chemistry became self-replicating. It began to evolve, to adapt, to compete for resources, and from that moment, life had begun. This process, if it happened at all, would have taken millions of years of trial and error, countless failed experiments in chemistry before one combination finally worked. Scientists have been able to recreate some of the steps in the laboratory, forming amino acids from simple gases exposed to energy, assembling primitive cell-like structures from lipids, but no one has yet created life from scratch. The jump from complex chemistry to living system remains elusive, and this matters for the search for alien life. Because if life is easy to start, if it emerges naturally wherever conditions allow, then it should be common. But if it requires a lucky coincidence, a precise sequence of events, then it might be vanishingly rare. The eighth fact is that life on Earth appeared early, but it stayed simple for a very long time. For the first 2 billion years or more, Earth was inhabited only by single-celled organisms, bacteria and archaea that lived in the oceans, in the soil, and eventually in nearly every environment the planet had to offer. These microbes were not passive passengers. They transformed the Earth. Some of them learned to photosynthesize, capturing energy from sunlight and releasing oxygen as a waste product. Over hundreds of millions of years, they filled the atmosphere with oxygen, a gas that had been almost absent before. This event, called the Great Oxidation, was catastrophic for many of the organisms that had thrived in the oxygen-free world, but it paved the way for more complex life. Eventually, around 1.5 to 2 billion years ago, something extraordinary happened. Some cells began to cooperate, merging into more complex forms. These were the first eukaryotes, cells with nuclei and specialized internal structures. From these, all multicellular life would eventually evolve. plants, fungi, animals, and eventually humans. But the key point is this: life stayed simple for most of Earth's history. If we could visit Earth at a random point in its past, we would most likely find a planet covered in microbes and nothing more. No forests, no animals, no cities, just microscopic life quietly reshaping the chemistry of the planet. This has profound implications for alien life. If Earth is typical, then most life in the universe is probably microbial. Complex multicellular life might be rare, and intelligent technological civilizations rarer still. When we search for life on Mars or the moons of Jupiter, we are probably not going to find forests or animals. We will be looking for bacteria or their alien equivalents, and even that would be an extraordinary discovery. The ninth fact is that life on Earth has survived multiple mass extinctions, events so catastrophic that they wiped out the majority of species. These extinctions were caused by a variety of factors: asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate change, shifts in ocean chemistry. Each time, life was pushed to the brink, and each time it recovered. The survivors diversified, filling the empty niches left behind by the extinct species, and life continued. The most famous of these extinctions is the one that killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, but it was not the worst. The worst was the Permian-Triassic extinction about 250 million years ago, which wiped out more than 90% of all species. And yet, here we are. Life persisted. This resilience tells us something important about biology. Life is tough. It adapts. It survives. Once it gets started, it is very difficult to completely eradicate. This gives us hope when we think about alien life. Even if a planet experiences dramatic changes, impacts, climate shifts, volcanic catastrophes, life might endure. It might be pushed into deep oceans, underground refuges, or frozen environments where it waits for conditions to improve. The search for life is not just a search for thriving ecosystems. It is also a search for survivors, for microbes clinging to existence in extreme environments, for biosignatures in places where life once flourished but has since been forced into hiding. The 10th fact is that life on Earth thrives in places we once thought were lifeless. This discovery, more than any other, has reshaped our understanding of where alien life might exist. For most of history, we assumed life required sunlight, moderate temperatures, and plenty of water. Then we started exploring the extremes of our own planet, and we found life everywhere. In boiling hot springs where the water exceeds the boiling point, there are thermophiles, heat-loving bacteria that thrive in temperatures that would cook most organisms. In the frozen lakes buried beneath Antarctic ice, cut off from sunlight for millions of years, there are bacteria living in the cold darkness, feeding on chemicals in the rock. In the deep ocean, near hydrothermal vents where superheated water shoots up from the seafloor, entire ecosystems flourish without any sunlight at all, powered by chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis. In acidic mine drainage, in salt flats, in the driest deserts, in radioactive waste, life has found a way. These extremophiles, as they are called, have expanded our definition of habitability. They have shown us that life does not need comfortable conditions. It needs energy, it needs liquid water, and it needs the right chemistry, but beyond that, it is extraordinarily adaptable. If life can survive in Earth's most hostile environments, then perhaps it can survive in the harsh conditions of Mars, or beneath the ice of Europa, or in the methane lakes of Titan. The existence of extremophils has transformed the search for alien life from a search for Earth-like paradises to a search for any environment that meets the minimum requirements, however alien it might seem to us. The 11th fact is that Mars, our neighbouring planet, was once much more like Earth than it is today. This is not speculation, it is written in the rocks. Spacecraft orbiting Mars and rovers on its surface have found abundant evidence of ancient rivers, lakes, and perhaps even oceans. The surface is carved with channels where water once flowed, and minerals have been detected that only form in the presence of liquid water. Billions of years ago, Mars had a thicker atmosphere, a warmer climate, and liquid water on its surface. It had, in short, the conditions necessary for life. Then something changed. Mars lost its magnetic field, which had protected its atmosphere from being stripped away by solar wind. Over time, the atmosphere thinned, the temperature dropped, and the water either froze or evaporated into space. Today, Mars is cold, dry, and bathed in radiation. Its surface is hostile to life as we know it, but life does not have to stay on the surface. If life ever arose on ancient Mars, it might have retreated underground as the planet became less hospitable. Beneath the surface, where ice melts melts into briny water and where the radiation does not penetrate, there might still be refugees for life. This is why so much of the search for life on Mars focuses on the subsurface. Every mission we send, from the Viking landers to Curiosity to Perseverance, is looking for signs of past or present life. And with each mission, we get closer to answering one of humanity's oldest questions. Are we alone, or has life arisen on two worlds in the same solar system? The 12th fact is that we have already brought pieces of Mars to Earth, though not intentionally. Meteorites from Mars, blasted off the planet by impacts and sent drifting through space, occasionally fall to Earth. Scientists have studied dozens of these Martian meteorites, analysing their minerals and chemistry for clues about Mars's past. And in one of these meteorites, a rock designated ALH 84001, scientists found something controversial: tiny structures that resembled fossilized bacteria, along with organic molecules and mineral patterns that on Earth are associated with biological activity. The discovery, announced in 1996, made headlines around the world. Had we found evidence of ancient Martian life? The debate raged for years, and the consensus today is that the structures are probably not biological, that they can be explained by non-living processes. But the case is not entirely closed. Some scientists still argue that the evidence deserves consideration, and others point out that even if this particular meteorite does not contain fossils, it shows that organic chemistry was happening on ancient Mars. The controversy around ALH 84001 taught us something important. Proving that something is biological is incredibly difficult, especially when you are dealing with ancient, microscopic and ambiguous evidence. When we do find signs of life on another world, assuming we ever do, we will need extraordinary care and rigorous testing before we can claim victory. The standards of proof will be high, as they should be. The 13th fact is that Mars is not the only place in our solar system where we might find life. In fact, some scientists think the icy moons of the outer planets are even better candidates. Take Europa, one of Jupiter's largest moons. Its surface is covered in a thick shell of ice, crisscrossed with cracks and ridges. But beneath that ice, kept warm by the tidal forces exerted by Jupiter's gravity, there is likely a vast ocean of liquid water. This ocean, if it exists, would contain more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. And where there is liquid water, there might be life. Europa's ocean is not exposed to sunlight, so any life there could not rely on photosynthesis. But Earth's deep ocean vents have shown us that life can thrive without sunlight, powered by chemical energy instead. If similar vents exist on Europa's ocean floor, they could provide the energy needed for biology. The same reasoning applies to Enceladus, a small moon of Saturn. Geysers erupt from its south pole, shooting plumes of water vapor and ice particles into space. These plumes have been analysed by spacecraft, and they contain not just water, but also organic molecules and salts, suggesting that they originate from a subsurface ocean. Both Europa and Enceladus are prime targets for future missions designed to search for life, and the discovery of life in either place would be among the greatest scientific achievements in human history. The 14th fact is about Titan, Saturn's largest moon and perhaps the strangest world in our solar system. Titan is the only moon with a thick atmosphere, and it is the only place besides Earth where we have confirmed stable liquid on the surface. But that liquid is not water. It is methane and ethane, hydrocarbons that are gases on Earth but liquids in Titan's frigid temperatures. Titan has lakes, rivers and seas of liquid methane. It has rain, clouds and a weather cycle eerily similar to Earth's water cycle. It even has coastlines and islands. Standing on Titan's surface, you would see a world that feels familiar and utterly alien at the same time. The sky is a thick orange haze, the sun is dim and distant, and the lakes shimmer with liquid hydrocarbons. Could life exist in such a place? Not life as we know it. Water is frozen solid on Titan, and the temperatures are far too cold for Earth-like biochemistry. But some scientists speculate that life might use liquid methane as a solvent instead of water, that it might have an entirely different chemistry based on the abundant hydrocarbons. Such life would be so strange that we might not recognize it at first, but the possibility is tantalizing. Titan is a natural laboratory for studying prebiotic chemistry, the kind of organic processes that might have preceded life on Earth. And whether or not we find life there, studying Titan will teach us about the diversity of worlds and the potential for biology in unexpected places. We will continue this exploration soon, moving outward from the solar system into the vast expanse of exoplanets, into the search for signals from from distant civilizations and into the deeper questions of what it means to find life or to realize we may be alone. For now, let these ideas settle gently. Let your mind wander across the surfaces of distant worlds, through subsurface oceans and into skies we have only begun to explore. There is no hurry. The universe has waited billions of years. It can wait a little longer while you rest. Beyond the familiar worlds of our solar system, beyond Mars and the icy moons, there is a frontier so vast it defies easy comprehension. This is the realm of exoplanets, planets orbiting stars other than our Sun, and it is here that the search for alien life has truly exploded in scope and ambition. For thousands of years, humanity could only wonder whether other stars had planets. We had no way to see them, no tools sensitive enough to detect their presence across the unimaginable distances of interstellar space. Then, in the 1990s, everything changed. The first confirmed exoplanet orbiting a Sun-like star was discovered in 1995, and since then, we have found thousands more. Today, we know that planets are not rare. They are the rule, not the exception. Nearly every star in the sky has at least one planet, and many have several. This means that in our galaxy alone, there are likely hundreds of billions of planets, and a significant fraction of them are rocky worlds, roughly the size of Earth. Some orbit in the habitable zone, the region around a star where temperatures are just right for liquid water to exist on the surface. These are the worlds that capture our imagination, the places where life might take hold, where oceans might lap against alien shores, where forests or their equivalents might grow under skies lit by unfamiliar suns. But finding exoplanets is only the beginning. The real challenge is figuring out what they are like. Most exoplanets are too far away and too faint to see directly. Instead, astronomers detect them through indirect methods. One of the most successful techniques is the transit method. When a planet passes in front of its star as seen from Earth, it blocks a tiny fraction of the star's light. By measuring this dimming, astronomers can infer the planet's size and orbital period. Another method, the radial velocity technique, detects the subtle wobble a planet's gravity induces in its star. By analysing this wobble, scientists can estimate the planet's mass and orbit. These techniques have been extraordinarily successful, but they tell us relatively little about the planets themselves. We can learn their size and mass, and sometimes their density, which gives us clues about their composition, but we cannot yet see their surfaces, map their continents, or directly analyse their atmospheres in detail. That is beginning to change. New telescopes, particularly the James Webb Space Telescope launched in 2021, are powerful enough to study the atmospheres of some exoplanets by analysing the light that passes through them during a transit. This light carries the chemical fingerprints of whatever gases are present, and by studying those fingerprints, scientists can begin to build a picture of what these distant worlds are like. This brings us to the 15th fact. The atmospheres of exoplanets can tell us whether life is present. Life leaves chemical traces. On Earth, the most obvious is oxygen. Our atmosphere contains about 21% oxygen, and nearly all of it is produced by photosynthetic life. Oxygen is highly reactive, and without biology constantly replenishing it, it would be quickly consumed by chemical reactions with rocks and gases. If we detect large amounts of free oxygen in the atmosphere of a distant planet, it would be a strong hint, though not definitive proof, that life is there. But oxygen is not the only biosignature. Methane, when found in combination with oxygen, is also suggestive, because those two gases react with each other and should not coexist in large quantities unless something is producing them. On Earth, much of the methane in the atmosphere is produced by living organisms, from bacteria in swamps to cows digesting grass. Other potential biosignatures include nitrous oxide, dimethyl sulfide, and phosphine, though each comes with caveats. The challenge is that many of these gases can also be produced by non-biological processes, so detecting them is not enough. Scientists need to rule out all the abiotic explanations before they can claim to have found life. This makes the search painstaking, but it also makes it rigorous. When we finally do detect a biosignature that cannot be explained any other way, the discovery will be robust, backed by multiple lines of evidence and scrutinized by scientists around the world. The 16th fact is that not all habitable zone planets are habitable. The habitable zone, sometimes called the Goldilocks zone, is defined as the range of distances from a star where a planet could have liquid water on its surface. But being in the habitable zone is not enough. A planet also needs the right atmosphere, the right geology, and probably the right kind of star. Venus, for example, is often considered to be just inside the inner edge of the Sun's habitable zone, but it is anything but habitable. Its thick carbon dioxide atmosphere has created a runaway greenhouse effect, with surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead. Mars is near the outer edge of the habitable zone, but it has lost most of its atmosphere and is cold and dry. Earth sits comfortably in the middle, but even Earth has not always been habitable in every sense. Early in its history, the planet was a molten hellscape, and for much of its existence it had no oxygen. Habitability is not just about distance from a star, it is about a complex interplay of factors, many of which we are only beginning to understand. A planet needs enough mass to hold onto its atmosphere, but not so much that it becomes a gas giant. It needs plate tectonics or some similar process to recycle nutrients and regulate climate. It needs a magnetic field to protect its atmosphere from being stripped away by stellar wind. It needs time, billions of years of stability for life to emerge and evolve. When we search for habitable worlds, we are not just looking for planets in the right place. We are looking for planets with the right conditions, and those are much rarer. The 17th fact is that red dwarf stars, the most common type of star in the galaxy, might be the best places to look for life, or they might be the worst. Red dwarfs are small, cool stars that burn their fuel slowly and can live for trillions of years, far longer than the Sun. Because they are so common, most of the potentially habitable planets in the galaxy probably orbit red dwarfs. The problem is that planets in the habitable zones of red dwarfs orbit very close to their stars. Because those stars are so dim, this close proximity creates challenges. Many of these planets are likely tidally locked, meaning one side always faces the star in eternal daylight while the other side is locked in eternal darkness. This could create extreme temperature differences, though some scientists think that a thick atmosphere could redistribute heat and keep the planet habitable. Another issue is that red dwarfs are prone to violent flares, sudden bursts of radiation that could strip away a planet's atmosphere or sterilize its surface. On the other hand, red dwarfs are incredibly stable over long timescales, and if life can adapt to the challenges they pose, then these stars could host countless living worlds. The debate is ongoing, and studying planets around red dwarfs is a major focus of current exoplanet research. The 18th fact is that we have already found planets that might, just might, be habitable. One of the most famous is Proxima Centauri b, a planet orbiting the closest star to our solar system, Proxima Centauri, just over 4 light-years away. Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf, and Proxima b orbits within its habitable zone. We do not know much about the planet yet, whether it has an atmosphere, whether it has water, whether it is tidally locked, but the fact that it exists so close to us is tantalizing. If we ever develop the technology to send probes to another star system, Proxima Centauri would be the obvious first target. Another intriguing system is TRAPPIST-1, a red dwarf about 40 light-years away. It has 7 Earth-sized planets, 3 of which orbit in the habitable zone. The system is compact, with all 7 planets orbiting closer to their star than Mercury orbits the Sun, but because TRAPPIST-1 is so cool, the planets receive the right amount of energy for liquid water to exist. Observations with the James Webb Space Telescope are already revealing details about their atmospheres, and in the coming years, we may know whether any of them are truly habitable. These discoveries are just the beginning. As our telescopes improve, we will find more Earth-like planets, and with each one, we will learn more about the conditions that support life and the frequency with which those conditions occur. The 19th fact is that even if a planet is habitable, life might not arise. Habitability is a necessary condition for life, but it is not sufficient. We still do not know how likely it is for life to begin, even given the right conditions. The origin of life on Earth might have been a near certainty, something that happens quickly and inevitably when chemistry and environment align, or it might have been a stroke of extraordinary luck, a chance event so improbable that it has happened only once in the entire history of the universe. This uncertainty is sometimes called the abiogenesis problem, and it is central to the question of how common life is. If life is easy to start, then we should expect to find it on many habitable worlds, and the galaxy should be full of biology. But if life is hard to start, if it requires some specific and unlikely sequence of events, then habitable planets might be common, but living planets might be vanishingly rare. We are trying to answer this question through a combination of laboratory experiments, where scientists attempt to recreate the conditions of early Earth and coax non-living chemistry into self-replicating systems, and through observations of other worlds, where we search for signs of biology. Until we find life elsewhere, or definitively rule it out on enough worlds, the question will remain open. The 20th fact is that life, once started, might be equally hard to detect. Imagine an Earth-like planet orbiting a distant star, covered in oceans and continents, teeming with microbial life. Unless that life produces large amounts of oxygen or some other detectable gas, we might never know it is there. Our telescopes, powerful as they are, cannot resolve individual continents or oceans on exoplanets. They can only analyze the average light from the entire planet, looking for chemical signatures in the atmosphere. If the life on that planet is microbial, if it exists in the oceans or underground, if it does not significantly alter the atmosphere, then it would be invisible to us. This is why the search for biosignatures focuses on atmospheric gases, because those are the signals we can detect from light years away. But it also means we are biased toward finding life that is similar to Earth life in at least one crucial way. It must affect its environment on a planetary scale. Quiet, hidden, or subtle life might escape our notice entirely, no matter how abundant it is. The 21st fact is that there is another way to search for life, and it does not involve telescopes or spacecraft. It involves listening. For more than 60 years, scientists involved in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, have been scanning the skies for radio signals or other signs of technological civilizations. The logic is straightforward. If intelligent aliens exist, and if they have developed technology, they might be broadcasting signals into space, either intentionally to communicate with other civilizations or unintentionally as a byproduct of their technology. For decades, we have been leaking radio and television signals into space, and any civilization within 100 light-years of Earth with sensitive enough equipment could detect them. SETI searches work the other way, listening for signals from other civilizations. The search has covered a tiny fraction of the sky, and so far it has found nothing definitive. There have been a few intriguing signals over the years, most famously the WOW signal detected in 1977, but none have been confirmed or repeated. The silence is puzzling. If intelligent life is common, why have we not heard from anyone? This question, known as the Fermi paradox, is one of the great mysteries of astrobiology, and we will explore it more deeply soon. The 22nd fact is that if we do receive a signal from an alien civilization, it will almost certainly come from a society that no longer exists. The distances between stars are so vast that light, the fastest thing in the universe, takes years, decades, centuries, or millennia to cross them. If we detect a signal from a civilization 1,000 light-years away, we are seeing a message sent 1,000 years ago. By the time we receive it, that civilization might have advanced beyond recognition, or it might have vanished entirely. And if we send a reply, it will take another 1,000 years to reach them, assuming they are still there and still listening. This is the fundamental challenge of interstellar communication. Even at the speed of light, conversations across the galaxy are painfully slow. A single exchange of messages could take longer than all of recorded human history. This makes the prospect of meaningful dialogue with an alien civilization difficult to imagine, though not impossible. A sufficiently advanced and patient civilization might engage in these long conversations, beaming information across the stars, building a network of knowledge that transcends individual species and persists for millions of years. But we are not there yet. For now, we are simply listening, hoping to hear anything at all. The 23rd fact is that SETI is expanding beyond radio signals. Traditional SETI focused on radio waves because they travel well through space and because we assumed that any technological civilization would use them, as we do, but there are other ways to search. Optical SETI looks for brief flashes of laser light, which could be used to send messages or even to propel spacecraft. Some researchers are searching for technosignatures, signs of large-scale engineering projects or artificial structures. One famous example is the idea of a Dyson sphere, a hypothetical megastructure built around a star to capture its energy. Such a structure would alter the light we see from that star in distinctive ways. While no Dyson spheres have been found, The search for them illustrates the creativity of modern SETI. We are no longer just listening for radio signals. We are looking for any sign that intelligence has reshaped its environment in ways we can detect from across the galaxy. This broader approach increases our chances of finding something, but it also reminds us how little we know about what advanced civilizations might look like or how they might behave. The 24th fact is that silence does not necessarily mean we are alone. There are many possible explanations for why we have not detected any signals. Perhaps intelligent civilizations are rare, and the nearest one is so far away that its signals have not reached us yet. Perhaps they exist but do not use radio waves or lasers in ways we can detect. Perhaps they are deliberately staying quiet, avoiding broadcasting their presence for reasons we can only guess at. Perhaps they communicate using technologies we have not imagined, methods so advanced or so alien that we would not recognize them as communication. Perhaps they tried to contact us long ago, before we had the technology to listen, and have since given up or moved on. Perhaps they are listening, just as we are, waiting for someone else to make the first move. Each of these possibilities is plausible, and each suggests that the absence of evidence is not yet evidence of absence. The galaxy is vast, our search has been brief, and the range of possibilities is enormous. We have only just begun to look. The 25th fact is that some scientists think we should not just listen, but also transmit. This idea, called active SETI or METI for messaging to extraterrestrial intelligence, involves deliberately sending powerful signals into space in the hope that someone will receive them. We have done this a few times. In 1974, astronomers used the Arecibo radio telescope to send a message toward a star cluster 25,000 light-years away. In the 1970s, the Voyager spacecraft carried golden records with sounds and images from Earth, though they are now far beyond the outer planets and unlikely to be found by anyone. But active SETI is controversial. Some argue that broadcasting our presence could be dangerous, that we do not know who might be listening or what their intentions might be. Others argue that we have already been broadcasting unintentionally for decades through our radio and television signals, so the damage, if any, is already done. Still others point out that the galaxy is so vast that our signals are like whispers in a hurricane, unlikely to be noticed by anyone unless they are very close and actively listening. The debate touches on deep questions about risk, caution, and our responsibility to future generations. Should we announce ourselves to the cosmos, or should we stay quiet and observe? There is no consensus, and for now, active SETI remains rare. The 26th fact is that the search for alien life is not just about looking out into space. It is also about looking inward at the nature of intelligence, consciousness, and what it means to be alive. Studying the possibility of alien minds forces us to confront the limits of our own understanding. We assume that intelligence is something like human intelligence, that it involves language, tools, abstract thought, and self-awareness. But intelligence might take forms we do not recognize. Octopuses, for example, are highly intelligent, but their cognition is distributed through their arms in ways that are completely alien to how our brains work. Dolphins and whales have complex communication and social structures, but we do not fully understand them. Even on Earth, among species we can study closely, intelligence remains mysterious. Now imagine intelligence that evolved on a completely different world, with different biology, different senses, different evolutionary pressures. It might not think in ways we would call thinking. It might not communicate in ways we would call communication, and if we encounter it, we might not realize what we are looking at. This is one of the deepest challenges of astrobiology, not finding life, but recognizing it when we do. We are still searching, still listening, still looking up at the stars and wondering. And as we do, the questions multiply. What forms might alien life take? How would it survive in environments nothing like Earth? What would it look like? And how would it sense the world around it? Soon we will turn to these questions, imagining the possibilities, grounded in science but open to the strangeness of a universe far larger and more creative than we can easily grasp. For now, rest easy. The search continues, patient and persistent, and the universe keeps its secrets a little longer. The universe is not obligated to make sense to us. It does not owe us familiar shapes or comprehensible patterns. And when we think about what alien life might actually look like, we must begin by letting go of our expectations. The creatures of science fiction, the ones with 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces that convey emotion in ways we understand, are designed to be relatable. They are built for storytelling, for drama, for the ease of human actors in costumes or the limits of special effects. But real alien life, if it exists, owes us nothing. It will be shaped not by narrative convenience, but by the laws of physics, the chemistry of its environment, and the pressures of evolution over millions or billions of years. It will be strange, possibly unrecognizable, and it may challenge every assumption we hold about what life is and what it can be. Let us start with the simplest possibility: microbial life. This is what most scientists expect to find first, if we find anything at all. Microbes are small, adaptable, and capable of surviving in environments that would kill more complex organisms. On Earth, bacteria and archaea have colonized nearly every habitat, from the deepest ocean trenches to the upper atmosphere, from Antarctic ice to boiling acidic springs. If life exists on Mars, Europa, Enceladus, or any of the other worlds we have discussed, it is almost certainly microbial. But even microbes can be strange. On Earth, we have discovered microbes that live in solid rock, extracting energy from minerals. We have found microbes that survive in the vacuum of space, enduring radiation and extreme temperatures. We have found microbes that eat plastic, breathe arsenic, and glow in the dark. Alien microbes might be stranger still. The 27th fact is that alien microbes might not look like cells. On Earth, all life is cellular. Every living organism, from bacteria to blue whales, is made of one or more cells, each enclosed by a membrane that separates the inside from the outside. This structure is so fundamental that we take it for granted, but it might not be universal. In environments with different chemistry, life might organize itself in different ways. It might not have membranes at all. It might exist as loose networks of molecules held together by something other than lipid bilayers. It might form crystal-like structures, patterns of information encoded in solid matter, or it might be something we cannot even describe because we lack the concepts and vocabulary. This is speculation, of course, but it is grounded in the recognition that life is a process, not a blueprint. If the process can happen, the structure will follow, and that structure might be unlike anything we have imagined. The 28th fact is that if alien microbes exist, they might use different genetic molecules. On Earth, all life uses DNA and RNA to store and transmit genetic information. These molecules are incredibly effective, but they are not the only option. Scientists have synthesized artificial genetic molecules in the lab, including XNA, xenonucleic acids, which function similarly to DNA but use different sugars in their backbone. These artificial molecules can store information and evolve just like DNA. If Earth life had taken a different path, it might use XNA or something like it. Alien life, evolving independently, might use genetic molecules completely unlike DNA or RNA, perhaps based on different chemical backbones, different bases, or even entirely different principles. This has profound implications for how we search for life, because much of our detection methods assume that life will leave chemical traces similar to Earth life. If alien biochemistry is radically different, we might not recognize its genetic material, its proteins, or even its waste products. The 19th fact is that alien life might not need cells, DNA, or even organic chemistry. This brings us back to the possibility of life based on silicon, or life that uses ammonia or methane as a solvent instead of water. Such life would operate at temperatures far colder than Earth life, and its metabolism would be slower, perhaps much slower. On a world like Titan, where the surface temperature is minus 179 degrees Celsius, silicon-based life using liquid methane might move and grow so slowly that it would be difficult to distinguish from geology. A year in the life of such an organism might correspond to seconds or minutes in ours, or vice versa. Observing it would require patience, careful long-term monitoring, and a willingness to accept that life does not always happen at the pace we expect. Even more speculatively, some scientists have proposed that life might exist without chemistry at all, perhaps as patterns of energy in plasma, or as information encoded in magnetic fields or quantum states. These ideas are on the far edge of speculation, and no evidence supports them, but they remind us that our definition of life is provisional. We define life based on what we know, and what we know is limited to one example. When we find a second example, our definitions will change, and the universe of possibilities will expand. The 30th fact is that if alien life is multicellular, its body plan might be determined by the same physical laws that shape life on Earth. Convergent evolution, the phenomenon where unrelated species evolve similar features in response to similar challenges, is common on Earth. Fish, dolphins, and ichthyosaurs all evolved streamlined bodies and fins for swimming, even though they belong to completely different lineages. Birds, bats, and pterosaurs all evolved wings for flight. Eyes have evolved independently dozens of times. These patterns suggest that certain solutions to biological problems are so effective that evolution discovers them again and again. On an alien world, similar principles might apply. A creature that swims might evolve a streamlined shape. A creature that flies might evolve wings. A creature that needs to sense light might evolve something eye-like. But the details would differ, shaped by the planet's gravity, atmosphere, and ecology. A flying creature on a high-gravity world might have shorter, stubbier wings. A creature in a thick atmosphere might fly with less effort. A predator in a dark environment might rely on echolocation or electrical senses instead of vision. The possibilities are endless, but they are constrained by physics and chemistry, which are the same everywhere in the universe. The 31st fact is that alien animals, if they exist, might have radically different senses than we do. Humans experience the world through sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, but these are not the only ways to perceive reality. Many animals on Earth use senses we lack. Some snakes detect infrared radiation, seeing the heat signatures of their prey. Some fish sense electric fields, navigating and hunting in murky water. Some birds detect magnetic fields, using them to navigate during migration. Bees see ultraviolet light. Bats navigate using echolocation. Alien animals might have senses we cannot even imagine, shaped by the unique properties of their environment. On a world with a thick atmosphere, creatures might communicate using low-frequency sound that travels for kilometers. On a world with constant storms, they might sense changes in air pressure or electrical charge. On a tidally locked planet, where one side is always bright and the other always dark, creatures might evolve different sensory systems depending on which side they live on. And on a world orbiting a dim red star, eyes might be sensitive to infrared rather than visible light, perceiving a world that would look completely different to us. The 32nd fact is that size matters, and alien life might be much larger or much smaller than life on Earth. The size of an organism is constrained by its environment. Gravity, atmospheric pressure, and the availability of oxygen all play a role. On Earth, the largest animals are whales, which are supported by the buoyancy of water. The largest land animals were the dinosaurs, which lived in an era when oxygen levels may have been higher and supported more efficient respiration. On a planet with lower gravity, animals might grow much larger without collapsing under their own weight. On a high-gravity planet, animals might be smaller and more compact, with thick bones and powerful muscles to support them. Insects on Earth are limited in size by the way they breathe, using passive diffusion through tubes called tracheae. In an atmosphere with more oxygen, insects could grow larger, as they did during the Carboniferous period. Alien insects, or their equivalents, on a high-oxygen world might be the size of dogs or larger. Conversely, on a world with thin atmosphere, flying creatures might need to be very light, with enormous wingspans and delicate bodies. The 33rd fact is that alien intelligence, if it exists, might not resemble human intelligence at all. We tend to think of intelligence as a single spectrum, with humans at the top, but this is a deeply flawed view. Intelligence is multifaceted. It includes problem-solving, memory, communication, social understanding, abstract reasoning, creativity, and more. Different species excel at different types of intelligence. Crows can solve complex puzzles. Elephants have long memories and deep social bonds. Dolphins have sophisticated communication. Octopuses can manipulate objects with precision and escape from enclosures. Each of these forms of intelligence is adapted to the needs and environment of the species. Alien intelligence would be similarly shaped by evolutionary pressures. A species that evolved as social hunters might develop intelligence focused on cooperation, communication, and strategy. A species that evolved as solitary foragers might develop intelligence focused on spatial memory and pattern recognition. A species that evolved in the ocean might have no concept of fire, tools, or agriculture, yet still be highly intelligent in ways we do not recognize. And some forms of intelligence might be collective rather than individual. On Earth, ant colonies and beehives exhibit behaviors that could be called intelligent, even though individual ants and bees are not. An alien species might have a hive mind, where intelligence emerges from the interaction of many individuals, none of whom are intelligent on their own. Or intelligence might be distributed in other ways, through symbiosis, through chemical communication, or through methods we cannot yet conceive. The 34th fact is that communication with an intelligent alien species would be extraordinarily difficult, even if we managed to make contact. Human language is deeply rooted in our biology, our senses, and our evolutionary history. We communicate primarily through sound, using a symbolic system where specific patterns of vibration represent concepts, objects, and actions. But this is not the only way to communicate. An alien species might communicate through color changes, like some cephalopods on Earth. They might use chemical signals, pheromones that convey complex information. They might communicate through patterns of bioluminescence, or through modulated electrical fields, or through rhythmic vibrations. If their primary sense is completely different from ours, their communication might be incomprehensible, even if we detect it. Imagine trying to communicate with a species that has no concept of sound, because it evolved in an environment where sound does not propagate. Or imagine a species whose communication is so slow that a single sentence takes days to complete, or so fast that it is over in microseconds. Even if we find common ground, the concepts we try to share might not translate. How do you explain color to a species that does not see? How do you explain music, emotion, or time? Mathematics has often been proposed as a universal language because mathematical truths are the same everywhere. But even that assumes the aliens think in ways that make mathematics meaningful. The challenge of communication is not just technical, it is philosophical. The 35th fact is that alien life might not be rare, but alien civilizations probably are. Life, as we have discussed, might be common given the right conditions, but intelligence is not inevitable. On Earth, life existed for billions of years before anything resembling intelligence emerged. Even today, of the millions of species on the planet, only one has developed technology and culture to the extent that we have. Intelligence is useful, but it is not the only survival strategy, and in many environments, it might not be the best one. Being intelligent is expensive. Brains consume enormous amounts of energy, and organisms that invest in intelligence must find ways to meet that energy demand. Intelligence also requires time. A species must survive long enough for selection to favor cognitive abilities, and the environment must provide challenges that intelligence can solve. If conditions are too stable, there is no pressure to evolve intelligence. If they are too unstable, species might go extinct before intelligence has a chance to develop. For these reasons, even if microbial life is abundant in the galaxy, and even if multicellular life is reasonably common, technological civilizations might be vanishingly rare. We might be surrounded by living worlds, teeming with microbes and simple organisms, but completely alone in our ability to ask these questions. The 36th fact is that even if intelligent civilizations exist, they might not last long. This is a sobering thought, but it is one that many scientists take seriously. Technological civilizations face existential risks. Nuclear war, climate change, pandemics, artificial intelligence, asteroid impacts, and technologies we have not yet invented all pose potential threats to our survival. If other civilizations face similar challenges, many of them might destroy themselves shortly after reaching the technological stage. This could explain the Fermi paradox, the puzzling silence we encounter when we search for signals from the stars. Perhaps civilizations are common but short-lived. They flicker into existence, broadcast for a brief moment in cosmic time, and then vanish. If the average technological civilization lasts only a few centuries or a few millennia, then at any given moment there might be very few of them active in the galaxy, and the chances of two civilizations existing at the same time and close enough to communicate are slim. This possibility is a reminder of our own fragility. If we want to survive as a species, we must navigate the dangers we have created, and we must do so with wisdom and foresight. The search for alien intelligence is not just about finding others, it is about understanding what it takes to endure. The 37th fact is that if we are alone, that too tells us something profound. If we search for decades or centuries and find no trace of life, no signal, no biosignature, then then we are left with a universe that is, as far as we can tell, empty. This would not prove that we are absolutely alone, only that life is far rarer than we hoped, or that intelligence is so unusual that we are the only example in a vast volume of space. Such a finding would be both humbling and awe-inspiring. It would mean that every living thing on Earth, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, is precious beyond measure, part of a phenomenon that might occur only once in billions of stars. It would place an enormous responsibility on us to preserve life, to protect our planet, and to ensure that the flame of consciousness does not go out. But it would also be deeply lonely. The silence would be complete, and we would have to accept that the universe, for all its beauty and complexity, is indifferent to our existence. It does not care whether we survive or flourish or ask questions. It simply is, vast and cold and distant, and we are here, small and brief and wandering, alone in the dark. But we do not yet know if we are alone. The search continues, and with every new discovery, every new world, every new technique, we come closer to an answer. Perhaps we will find microbes on Mars or in the oceans of Europa. Perhaps we will detect a biosignature in the atmosphere of an exoplanet. Perhaps we will receive a signal from a distant star, a message sent across light years and centuries, telling us that someone else is out there, asking the same questions we are. And perhaps one day we will meet them, not in person perhaps, but in the exchange of information, in the sharing of knowledge, in the recognition that we are not alone. That somewhere, in the vastness of space, there is another mind looking up at the stars and wondering, just as we are. Until then, we wait and we search and we imagine. The universe is patient. It has waited billions of years. It can wait a little longer while we find our way. Rest now and let these ideas settle. Let your mind drift across the possibilities, through worlds of ice and methane, through skies lit by red suns, through oceans hidden beneath frozen shells. There is no rush. The cosmos is vast, and the question of whether we are alone is one we will carry forward, generation after generation, until at last we find an answer, or make peace with the silence. When we ask whether we are alone in the universe, we are also asking something deeper, something that cuts to the core of what it means to be human. We are asking about our place, our significance, our connection to the cosmos. The question is not just scientific, but existential. And one of the most profound aspects of this question is what scientists call the Fermi paradox, named after physicist Enrico Fermi, who famously asked, "Where is everybody?" The paradox is simple to state, but difficult to resolve. The universe is old, nearly 14 billion years. Our galaxy is ancient, containing hundreds of billions of stars, many of them older than the Sun. If even a tiny fraction of those stars have planets, and if even a tiny fraction of those planets harbour life, and if even a tiny fraction of that life becomes intelligent and technological, then there should be countless civilizations in the galaxy. Some of them should be millions or even billions of years more advanced than we are. And if they are that advanced, they should be visible. They should have spread across the galaxy, colonizing new star systems, building megastructures, leaving unmistakable signs of their existence. So where are they? Why is the sky silent? Why have we found no probes, no transmissions, no evidence of their presence? This is the Fermi paradox, and it has haunted scientists and thinkers for decades. The 38th fact is that there are many proposed solutions to the Fermi paradox, and none of them are entirely satisfying. One possibility, as we have discussed, is that life is rare. Perhaps the emergence of life from non-living chemistry is so difficult, so improbable, that it has happened only a handful of times in the galaxy, or perhaps only once. This would explain the silence, though it would make us extraordinarily special, a troubling conclusion given the history of science, which has repeatedly shown that we are not central, not unique, not privileged in any cosmic sense. Another possibility is that life is common, but intelligence is rare. Perhaps most life never evolves beyond the microbial stage, or perhaps complex multicellular life is common, but technological intelligence is a fluke, a 1 in a billion accident that has occurred only here. This would mean the galaxy is full of living worlds, but we are the only ones capable of asking these questions, at least in our corner of space. Still another possibility is that civilizations are common, but short-lived. Perhaps every technological species eventually destroys itself, either through war, environmental collapse, or some other catastrophe. If so, the galaxy might be littered with the ruins of dead civilizations, their signals long since faded, their monuments crumbling on lifeless worlds. The 39th fact is that some solutions to the Fermi paradox suggest that advanced civilizations are out there, but we cannot see them because they are too different, too advanced, or too far away. Perhaps they exist, but do not use radio waves or lasers. Perhaps they communicate through methods we have not discovered, technologies so far beyond our current understanding that their signals pass right through our instruments unnoticed. This is sometimes called the ontological discontinuity hypothesis. It suggests that sufficiently advanced technology would be indistinguishable from nature or from magic, to use Arthur C. Clarke's famous phrase. A civilization millions of years ahead of us might manipulate space-time, harness dark energy, or exist in forms that are no longer biological. They might have transcended the need for physical bodies, uploading their consciousness into vast computational substrates, or they might have retreated into virtual realities, finding the universe inside their machines more interesting than the one outside. If so, they would have no reason to colonize the galaxy, no reason to broadcast, and no reason to make contact with primitive species like us. They would be invisible, not because they are hiding, but because they have moved beyond the concerns that drive our search. The 40th fact is that another solution to the paradox is that we are being watched, but not contacted. This is sometimes called the zoo hypothesis. It suggests that advanced civilizations know about us, but have chosen not to interfere, perhaps following some kind of cosmic non-interference principle similar to the prime directive in science fiction. They might be studying us, observing our development, waiting until we reach some threshold of maturity before making contact. This idea is appealing in some ways, but it raises questions. Why would all advanced civilizations agree to such a policy? Why would none of them break ranks? And why would they care about us at all? We are, from a cosmic perspective, utterly insignificant. Another variation of this idea is that the galaxy is already colonized, but we live in a preserve, a protected region where young civilizations are allowed to develop undisturbed. This would explain why we see no signs of anyone else. They are out there, but they are deliberately staying away. The problem with this hypothesis is that it requires an extraordinary level of coordination and restraint among many civilizations, something that seems difficult to maintain over millions of years. The 41st fact is that we might simply be early. The universe is nearly 14 billion years old, but the first stars did not have planets like Earth. They formed from hydrogen and helium, the only elements that existed after the Big Bang. Heavier elements, like carbon, oxygen and iron, were forged in the cores of stars and scattered into space when those stars exploded as supernovae. It took billions of years for enough heavy elements to accumulate to form rocky planets and the chemistry of life. The Sun and Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago, relatively late in the universe's history, but early enough that we might be among the first civilizations to arise. If so, the galaxy might be full of potential, full of worlds where life is just beginning or has not yet started. In a few billion years, the galaxy might be teeming with civilizations, but right now, in this moment, we might be among the first to look up and ask where everyone is. This is a hopeful solution to the Fermi paradox, because it means we are not alone forever, only alone for now. It also places a responsibility on us. If we are among the first, then the choices we make, the values we uphold, and the legacy we leave might shape the future of intelligence in the galaxy. The 42nd fact is that distance and time might simply be too great for contact. The galaxy is enormous, 100,000 light-years across. Even travelling at the speed of light, which is almost certainly impossible for physical objects with mass, it would take 100,000 years to cross from one side to the other. If civilizations are spread across the galaxy, separated by thousands or tens of thousands of light-years, then communication is painfully slow, and travel is essentially impossible. A signal sent from a civilization on the far side of the galaxy would take tens of thousands of years to reach us, and our reply would take just as long to get back. By the time they received it, their civilization might no longer exist. Even if faster-than-light travel is possible, which most physicists doubt, the sheer scale of the galaxy would make contact rare and difficult, and if civilizations are short-lived, lasting only thousands or tens of thousands of years, then the odds of two civilizations existing at the same time and close enough to make contact are vanishingly small. We might be shouting into a vast empty room, our voices echoing back to us because there is no one close enough to hear. The 43rd fact is that we might not recognize alien intelligence intelligence even if we encounter it. This is one of the most unsettling possibilities. We are searching for signals, for signs of technology, for biosignatures in the atmospheres of exoplanets. But we are searching for things that resemble what we know. Our definition of intelligence, our understanding of technology, and our concept of life are all based on a single example. If alien intelligence is radically different, if it does not build radio transmitters or alter its atmosphere in ways we expect, then we might miss it entirely. Imagine an intelligence that exists in the interactions of quantum particles, or in the structure of gravitational fields, or as distributed patterns in the interstellar medium. Imagine intelligence that is not conscious in the way we understand consciousness, that does not have goals or intentions, but nonetheless processes information and responds to its environment. Imagine intelligence so slow that it takes centuries to complete a single thought, or so fast that it experiences subjections in what seems to us like an instant. How would we recognize such a thing? How would we even begin to communicate with it? The challenge is not just detecting aliens, it is knowing what to look for, and that requires imagination, humility, and a willingness to question our assumptions. The 44th fact is that some scientists think the Fermi paradox is not a paradox at all. They argue that the assumptions underlying it are flawed, that we are making the problem harder than it is by assuming civilizations should be common, visible, and expansionist. Perhaps civilizations are not interested in colonizing the galaxy. Perhaps the resources and effort required are too great, or perhaps they find other pursuits more meaningful. Perhaps they have learned to live sustainably on their homeworlds, meeting their needs without expanding outward. Perhaps the very idea of spreading across the galaxy is a peculiarly human ambition, driven by our history of exploration and conquest, and other species might not share it. If so, then the silence is not surprising. Civilizations might exist, living quietly on their homeworlds, uninterested in making contact or leaving traces that we would notice. This solution is humbling. It suggests that we might never find anyone, not because they are not there, but because they are not looking for us, and we are too limited to see them. The 45th fact is that the Great Silence, as it is sometimes called, might be telling us something about the future. If the Fermi paradox is real, if the galaxy truly is empty or nearly empty of technological civilizations, then it suggests that something prevents species like us from lasting. Perhaps there is a filter, a challenge that almost no one survives. This idea is called the Great Filter, and it is one of the most disturbing concepts in astrobiology. The filter could be in the past. Perhaps the jump from non-living chemistry to life is incredibly hard, or the evolution of multicellular life is rare, or the development of intelligence is a fluke. If the filter is behind us, then we are lucky to have made it this far, and the galaxy might be full of planets with simple life but almost no one like us. But the filter could also be ahead of us. Perhaps there is some challenge that technological civilizations inevitably face, and almost none of them survive. Perhaps it is nuclear war, climate change, resource depletion, artificial intelligence run amok, or something we have not yet imagined. If the filter is ahead, then the silence of the galaxy is a warning. It tells us that countless others have come before, reached the point where we are now, and failed. And if we want to be different, if we want to survive, we must learn from their absence and find a way through. The 46th fact is that despite the silence, we have reasons to keep searching. Every year, our tools improve. Our telescopes become more sensitive. Our methods become more sophisticated. The James Webb Space Telescope can analyze the atmospheres of exoplanets. Future missions will go further, searching for biosignatures, mapping distant worlds, and listening for signals with unprecedented precision. And as we search, we learn. We learn about the diversity of planets, the chemistry of atmospheres, the conditions that support life, and the limits of what is possible. Even if we never find aliens, the search itself is valuable. It expands our understanding of the universe and our place within it. It forces us to think carefully about what life is, what intelligence means, and what we value. And it reminds us that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, a cosmos that has existed for billions of years and will continue long after we are gone. The 47th fact is that the absence of evidence is not yet evidence of absence. We have been searching for less than a century, and we have barely scratched the surface. The galaxy is vast, and the universe is vaster still. There are places we have not looked, signals we have not listened for, and possibilities we have not considered. Perhaps life is out there, waiting to be found, hidden in plain sight, or in some corner of the cosmos we have not yet reached. Perhaps the next telescope will find it, or the next mission, or the one after that. Or perhaps it will take centuries or millennia, but eventually, if we persist, we will find an answer. And when we do, when we finally detect a signal, or find a microbe on Mars, or see the unmistakable signature of life in the atmosphere of a distant planet, everything will change. We will know that we are not alone, that life is not unique to Earth, that the universe is filled with the same creative force that brought us into being. And in that moment, the silence will be broken, and we will begin a new chapter, not just in the search for life, but in the story of what it means to be alive in a living cosmos. Until then, we wait, we search, we hope. And we carry the question with us, one of the deepest and most enduring questions humanity has ever asked. Are we alone? The universe has not yet answered, but the question remains, echoing through the silence, waiting for the day when at last someone hears and replies. Let your thoughts rest here for a moment. The silence is not empty. It is full of possibility, full of worlds unseen, full of questions yet to be answered. And as you drift into sleep, know that the search continues, carried forward by those who wonder, who hope, and who refuse to accept that the universe has no more stories to tell. Now we turn towards something that might seem less tangible, but is equally important in understanding the search for alien life. We turn toward the concept of biosignatures, the fingerprints that life leaves on a planet, and how we are learning to read them from across the vastness of space. A biosignature is any substance, pattern, or phenomenon whose presence strongly suggests the existence of life. On Earth, biosignatures are everywhere. The oxygen in our atmosphere is a biosignature, produced almost entirely by photosynthetic organisms. The seasonal variations in carbon dioxide, rising in winter and falling in summer as plants grow and decay, are biosignatures. The presence of certain gases like methane and nitrous oxide in combination with oxygen is a biosignature because these gases react with each other and should not coexist unless something is actively producing them. Even the red edge, the sharp change in reflectivity that occurs at the boundary between visible and infrared light in plant leaves, is a biosignature. If we could observe Earth from another star system, we could detect all of these signals, and they would tell us that this planet is alive. The challenge now is to find similar signals on other worlds. The 48th fact is that detecting biosignatures on exoplanets is incredibly difficult but not impossible. When we observe an exoplanet, we are not seeing it directly, at least not yet. What we see is the light from its star, and by analysing that light carefully, we can learn about the planet. During a transit, when the planet passes in front of the star, some of the starlight passes through the planet's atmosphere. Molecules in that atmosphere absorb light at specific wavelengths, creating a kind of barcode, a pattern of absorption lines that tells us what gases are present. By studying this pattern, scientists can detect water vapour, carbon dioxide, methane, and other gases. The James Webb Space Telescope, launched in 2021, was specifically designed to perform this kind of analysis. It has already begun studying the atmospheres of exoplanets, and in the coming years it will search for biosignatures on potentially habitable worlds. The presence of oxygen, especially in large quantities, would be a strong hint of life. The presence of methane and oxygen together would be even stronger because these gases destroy each other unless something is constantly replenishing them. But as always, care must be taken. We must rule out non-biological explanations before we can claim to have found life. The 49th fact is that oxygen, despite being a strong biosignature on Earth, might not always indicate life. There are non-biological processes that can produce oxygen. For example, water vapour in the atmosphere of a planet can be broken apart by ultraviolet light from the star, a process called photodissociation. This releases oxygen, and if the hydrogen escapes into space, the oxygen can build up. This process is slow, but on a planet with a lot of water and strong UV radiation, it could produce detectable amounts of oxygen without any biology. To distinguish biological oxygen from abiotic oxygen, scientists look for additional clues. If oxygen is present along with methane, or if there are other gases that suggest active biology, then the case for life becomes stronger. But a single gas, even oxygen, is not enough on its own. This is why the search for biosignatures is so painstaking. It requires multiple multiple lines of evidence, careful analysis, and a willingness to consider all possible explanations. The 50th fact is that some biosignatures might be produced only by life, with no known abiotic source. One example is phosphine, a gas made of phosphorus and hydrogen. On Earth, phosphine is produced by anaerobic bacteria in swamps and marshes, and it is also produced industrially, but there are no known natural geological processes that produce it in significant quantities. In 2020, scientists announced the detection of phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus, a discovery that sparked intense debate. Venus is a hellish world, with surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead and atmospheric pressure 90 times that of Earth. But high in its atmosphere, in the cloud layers, conditions are more temperate. Some scientists speculated that microbial life might exist in those clouds, producing the phosphine. Others argued that the detection was an error, or that there might be unknown chemical processes on Venus that produce phosphine without biology. The debate continues, and follow-up observations have been inconclusive. The case of Venus illustrates both the promise and the peril of biosignature detection. A single, unusual molecule can ignite excitement and controversy, but proving that it is biological is extraordinarily difficult. The 51st fact is that some biosignatures are not chemical, but physical or structural. One example is the red edge we mentioned earlier, the change in reflectivity caused by chlorophyll in plant leaves. Chlorophyll absorbs visible light for photosynthesis, but reflects infrared light, creating a sharp change in the spectrum that can be detected from space. If an exoplanet has vegetation or something like it, and if that vegetation covers a significant portion of the surface, then the red edge might be visible in the planet's reflected light. This would be a strong hint of biology, though again, care must be taken. Other materials, like certain minerals, can also cause changes in reflectivity, so the red edge alone is not definitive proof. Still, it is a tantalizing possibility, and future telescopes might be able to detect it. Another physical biosignature is the presence of large-scale patterns or structures that suggest biological activity. For example, seasonal changes in atmospheric composition, like the rise and fall of carbon dioxide on Earth, suggest a biosphere responding to the changing seasons. Detecting such patterns on an exoplanet would require long-term monitoring, but it could provide strong evidence of life. The 52nd fact is that technosignatures, the signs of technological civilizations, are a different kind of biosignature. While biosignatures tell us that life is present, technosignatures tell us that intelligent life is present and that it has developed technology. We have already discussed some examples: radio signals, laser pulses, and megastructures like Dyson spheres, but there are others. One is atmospheric pollution. If a civilization industrializes, it might release gases into its atmosphere that do not occur naturally. On Earth, we have produced chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, for refrigeration and aerosols. These gases are entirely artificial. They do not exist in nature, and their presence in an exoplanet's atmosphere would be a clear sign of technology. Similarly, high levels of nitrogen dioxide or other industrial pollutants might indicate the presence of a technological civilization. This raises an ironic possibility. The same pollution that threatens our own civilization might be the key to detecting others. Another technosignature is artificial lighting. If a civilization lights its cities at night, as we do, then the light from those cities might be detectable, especially on planets orbiting dim red dwarf stars where artificial light would stand out more clearly. Detecting such light would require extremely powerful telescopes, but it is not beyond the realm of future possibility. The 53rd fact is that biosignatures and technosignatures are not always easy to distinguish from natural phenomena, and this leads to the problem of false positives. A false positive is when we detect something that looks like a biosignature or technosignature but is actually produced by non-biological processes. For example, oxygen can be produced by photodissociation of water, as we discussed. Methane can be produced by volcanic activity or by reactions between rock and water. Even complex organic molecules can form in space without biology. In 2017, astronomers detected an unusual object passing through the solar system named Oumuamua. It was long and thin, tumbling through space, and it accelerated slightly as it moved away from the sun, as if something were pushing it. Some scientists speculated that it might be an alien spacecraft or probe, a technosignature. Others argued that it was a comet or asteroid with unusual properties, perhaps venting gas as it warmed, which would explain the acceleration. The debate was fierce, but most scientists now favor the natural explanation. Oumuamua was probably a comet, albeit a strange one. This case illustrates how easy it is to jump to extraordinary conclusions and how important it is to remain skeptical and rigorous. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we must always look for the simplest explanation first. The 54th fact is that the search for biosignatures is entering a new era. In the past, we could only speculate about what other planets might be like. Now we can study them directly. The James Webb Space Telescope is analyzing the atmospheres of exoplanets, searching for gases that might indicate life. Future missions, like the Habitable Exoplanet Observatory, or HabEx, and the Large UV Optical Infrared Surveyor, or LUVOIR, are being designed specifically to image Earth-like planets and study their atmospheres in detail. These telescopes will be able to detect oxygen, methane, water vapor, and other gases, and they will search for the red edge and other biosignatures. Within the next few decades, we might have the technology to definitively determine whether life exists on other worlds, at least within a certain distance from Earth. This is an extraordinary moment in human history. For the first time, we are on the verge of being able to answer the question of whether we are alone, not through speculation or philosophy, but through observation and measurement. The 55th fact is that even if we detect a biosignature, proving that it is biological will take time and careful analysis. When we find something unusual, the first question is always, can this be explained without invoking biology? Scientists will model the planet's atmosphere, its chemistry, its geology, and its star. They will simulate all the known processes that could produce the signal. Only after they have ruled out all the non-biological explanations can they begin to seriously consider biology. And even then, the conclusion will be tentative, subject to revision as new data comes in. This is how science works. It is cautious, deliberate, and self-correcting. But when we do find life, when the evidence is strong enough that the conclusion is unavoidable, it will be one of the most profound moments in human history. We will know that life is not unique to Earth, that the universe is a place where biology can flourish, and that we are part of something much larger. The 56th fact is that the detection of life, whether microbial or intelligent, will raise as many questions as it answers. If we find microbial life on Mars or Europa, we will want to know how it started, how it survives, and whether it is related to life on Earth. It is possible that life on Mars and life on Earth share a common origin, that microbes were transferred between the planets on meteorites, a process called panspermia. If so, then finding life on Mars would not tell us that life arose twice. It would tell us that life arose once and spread. To know whether life arises independently, we would need to study its biochemistry, its genetic material, and its structure. If Martian life uses DNA and proteins like Earth life, then it is probably related to us. But if it uses completely different molecules, if its biochemistry is alien, then it represents a second origin of life, and that would tell us that life is not a fluke, but a natural outcome of chemistry. If we detect life on an exoplanet, the questions will be even more profound. We will not be able to visit that planet, at least not with current technology. We will not be able to study its life directly. All we will have is the light from its atmosphere, a distant echo of biology. But even that echo will tell us something important. It will tell us that life exists beyond our solar system, that it arises on other worlds, and that the universe is not barren, but fertile. The 57th fact is that biosignatures are not the only way to search for life. We can also search for habitable conditions, for places where life could exist, even if we cannot yet detect it. This is the strategy behind missions to Mars, Europa, and Enceladus. These missions do not expect to find life directly, but they search for water, for organic molecules, for environments where life could survive. By mapping these environments, by understanding the chemistry and geology of these worlds, we narrow the search. We identify the places where life is most likely to be, and we focus our efforts there. This is a long-term strategy, but it is a necessary one. The universe is vast, and we cannot search everywhere at once. We must be strategic, focusing on the most promising targets, and gradually expanding our search as our technology improves. The 58th fact is that the discovery of biosignatures, or even the failure to find them, will shape the future of humanity. If we find life, it will unite us in a way that few things can. It will remind us that we are not alone, that life is a cosmic phenomenon, and that the barriers that divide us are small compared to the vastness of the universe. It might inspire a new era of exploration, a renewed commitment to understanding the cosmos and our place within it. But if we search for decades or centuries and find nothing, that too will have an impact. It will tell us that life is rare, that Earth is precious, and that we have a responsibility to protect it. It will make us confront the possibility that intelligence is fragile, that civilizations rise and fall, and that if we want to survive, we must learn from the silence. Either way, the search for life is not just about finding others. It is about understanding ourselves, our origins, our future, and our place in a universe that is far larger, older, and stranger than we can fully comprehend. The 59th fact is that this search has already changed us. It has expanded our sense of what is possible, deepened our appreciation for the diversity of worlds, and reminded us that Earth, for all its beauty and abundance, is just one planet among countless others. The search for alien life is a mirror. It reflects our hopes, our fears, our curiosity, and our resilience. And as we continue, as we build better telescopes, send more missions, and ask deeper questions, we carry forward a tradition that is as old as humanity itself, the tradition of looking up at the stars and wondering what lies beyond. Rest now. Let your mind drift among the stars, through atmospheres of distant planets, into oceans hidden beneath ice, and across landscapes we have only begun to imagine. The search continues, patient and persistent, and the universe keeps its secrets for now. But the questions remain, and as long as we ask them, we are not alone. One of the most humbling and perplexing realizations in the search for extraterrestrial life is that even if it exists, even if the galaxy is filled with living worlds, we might never find it. Not because it is not there, but because the universe is indifferent to our desire for answers. Space is vast beyond human comprehension, distances are measured in light years, and time operates on scales that dwarf civilizations. When we send signals into space, they propagate outward at the speed of light, but space is so large that even at that speed, a message might take thousands or millions of years to reach its destination, and if a reply comes, it will take just as long to return. This is the challenge of interstellar communication, not just that we must find someone to talk to, but that the conversation, if it happens at all, will unfold over timescales longer than human history. It is a conversation between epochs, not individuals, and the patience it requires is almost unimaginable. The 60th fact is that light speed is both the fastest and the slowest thing in the universe. Nothing can travel faster than light. This is not a technological limitation, it is a fundamental law of physics, woven into the structure of space and time itself. For electromagnetic radiation, for light itself, traveling at light speed means that distance and time are experienced in a particular way. From the perspective of a photon, if such a thing could be said to have a perspective, no time passes at all during its journey. It is emitted and absorbed in the same instant, regardless of how far it travels. But for us, bound to slower speeds and longer lives, light speed is agonizingly slow. The nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, is about 4 light-years away. A message sent there would take 4 years to arrive, and if anyone received it and replied immediately, we would not hear back for another 4 years. That is 8 years for a single exchange, and Alpha Centauri is our closest neighbour. Most stars in the galaxy are thousands or tens of thousands of light-years away. A message sent to the far side of the galaxy would take 100,000 years to arrive, and by the time a reply came back, 200,000 years would have passed. Civilizations rise and fall in less time than that. Entire species evolve and go extinct. The speed of light, so fast on human scales, becomes a barrier to meaningful communication across the stars. The 61st fact is that even if we detect a signal from an alien civilization, we will be hearing from the past. If we receive a radio transmission from a star 1,000 light-years away, we are not hearing a message sent by beings alive today. We are hearing a message sent 1,000 years ago by a civilization that may no longer exist. They may have advanced beyond recognition, or they may have destroyed themselves, or they may have simply moved on, abandoning the technology that sent the signal, and if we reply, our message will take another 1,000 years to reach them, assuming they are still there and still listening. This is not a conversation. It is an exchange of messages across the abyss of time, each side speaking to a future or past that is almost abstract. Some scientists have suggested that any message we receive from an advanced civilization might be a beacon, a deliberate transmission designed to be detected by younger civilizations. The message might contain information, instructions, warnings, or simply a statement of existence. But even if we decode it, even if we understand it, the beings who sent it will be long gone by the time we hear them. The 60-second fact is that this delay has profound implications for SETI and the search for intelligent life. If we are listening for signals, we are listening to the past. If we are broadcasting, we are speaking to the future. The present moment, the now, is inaccessible. There is no way to have a real-time conversation with an alien civilization unless they are so close that the light travel time is negligible, and no civilization is that close, at least not one we have detected. This is why some scientists think that SETI should focus not on communication, but on detection. The goal is not to have a dialogue, but to simply confirm that someone else is out there, that we are not alone. The discovery of a signal, even an ancient one, would be profound. It would tell us that intelligence arises elsewhere, that technology is possible for others, and that civilizations can last long enough to send messages across the stars. Even if we can never meet them, even if we can never talk to them in any meaningful sense, knowing they existed would change everything. The 63rd fact is that some forms of communication might be faster than light, at least in theory. Quantum entanglement, for example, is a phenomenon where two particles become linked in such a way that the state of one instantly affects the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are. This has led to speculation that entanglement could be used for faster-than-light communication. However, physicists have shown that entanglement cannot be used to transmit information faster than light. The correlations between entangled particles are real, but they cannot be controlled in a way that allows for communication. Any attempt to use entanglement to send a message would still require classical signals, which travel at or below the speed of light. Other speculative ideas include wormholes, hypothetical tunnels through space-time that could connect distant points in the universe. If wormholes exist and can be stabilized, they might allow for faster-than-light travel or communication. But wormholes remain purely theoretical. We have no evidence that they exist, and even if they do, creating or stabilizing one would likely require technology far beyond anything we can currently imagine. For now, light speed remains the ultimate limit, and the vast distances between stars remain a barrier we cannot overcome. The 64th fact is that the challenge of distance applies not just to communication, but to travel. Even if we could build a spacecraft that travels at a significant fraction of the speed of light, the journey to another star would take decades at a minimum. The nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, is about 4 light-years away. A spacecraft traveling at 10% of the speed of light would take 40 years to get there. A spacecraft traveling at half the speed of light would take 8 years. These are lifetimes, and those are the closest stars. A mission to a star 100 light-years away would take centuries or millennia, depending on the speed of the spacecraft. The astronauts who left would never return, and the civilization that sent them might not exist by the time they arrived. This is why interstellar travel is so difficult. It is not just a matter of building a fast enough spacecraft, it is a matter of sustaining a mission over timescales that exceed human lifespans, possibly by many generations. The 65th fact is that some scientists have proposed solutions to the problem of interstellar travel, though all of them remain speculative. One idea is the Generation Ship, a spacecraft large enough to sustain a population of humans for centuries or millennia. The people who launched the ship would live out their lives aboard it, and their descendants would continue the journey until eventually, many generations later, the ship would arrive at its destination. This concept is appealing in science fiction, but the engineering challenges are staggering. A generation ship would need to be entirely self-sufficient, recycling air, water, and food, and providing everything a human society needs to thrive. It would need to be protected from radiation, from micrometeorites, and from the psychological and social challenges of living in a confined space for generations. Another idea is cryogenic suspension, freezing astronauts for the duration of the journey and reviving them when they arrive. This would eliminate the need for a generation ship, but the technology to safely freeze and revive humans does not yet exist, and it is unclear whether it ever will. A third idea is to send robotic probes instead of humans. These probes could travel faster, survive longer, and explore distant star systems without the need for life support. They could send data back to Earth, giving us a window into other worlds even if we never visit them ourselves. This is probably the most realistic option for interstellar exploration in the near term, though even robotic missions face enormous challenges. The 66th fact is that light sails offer one of the most promising methods for achieving high-speed interstellar travel. A light sail is a large, thin sheet of reflective material that is pushed by the pressure of light. On Earth, the pressure of sunlight is negligible, but in space, where there is no air resistance, even the gentle push of photons can accelerate a spacecraft. The Breakthrough Starshot project, announced in 2016, aims to use powerful ground-based lasers to push tiny light sail spacecraft up to 20% of the speed of light. At that speed, a probe could reach Alpha Centauri in about 20 years. The spacecraft would be small, perhaps no larger than a smartphone, and would carry cameras and sensors to study the star system and send data back to Earth. This technology is still in the early stages of development, and there are many challenges to overcome, including building lasers powerful enough to accelerate the spacecraft, designing sails that can withstand the intense heat, and ensuring that the tiny probes can survive the journey and transmit data across light years. But if it works, it could open the door to interstellar exploration within our lifetimes. The 67th fact is that even if we solve the problem of speed, there is the problem of navigation. Space is not empty. It is filled with dust, gas, and the occasional larger object, and at high speeds, even a tiny particle can cause catastrophic damage. A speck of dust hitting a spacecraft traveling at 20% of the speed of light would release as much energy as a small bomb. Shielding the spacecraft is essential, but shielding adds weight, which makes it harder to accelerate. Navigation is also difficult. At interstellar distances, steering is almost impossible. A spacecraft must be aimed with extraordinary precision before it launches, and once it is on its way, any course corrections would take years to implement because of the time delay in communication. These are not insurmountable problems, but they illustrate the immense challenges of interstellar travel. Every detail must be planned and executed with perfection, because there is no room for error. The 68th fact is that if we ever do send missions to other star systems, the data they send back will take years to arrive. A probe at Alpha Centauri, 4 light-years away, would send signals that take 4 years to reach Earth. By the time we see the images and data, they will already be 4 years old. This is not real-time exploration. It is historical observation, a glimpse into the past of a place we cannot visit. But even that glimpse would be invaluable. Seeing another star system up close, seeing its planets, its moons, its geology and chemistry, would transform our understanding of the universe. It would tell us whether those worlds are habitable, whether they harbour life, and whether they could one day become homes for humanity. The data would take years to transmit, but it would be worth the wait. The 69th fact is that some scientists think we should not focus on physical travel at all, but on sending information. A spacecraft is heavy and slow, but information is light and fast. We could send detailed instructions for building machines, for synthesizing life, even for recreating human civilization. If a distant star system has raw materials and some basic infrastructure, either natural or left by a previous civilization, then those instructions could be used to build a new outpost of humanity, not by sending people, but by sending the knowledge to create them. This idea is deeply speculative, but it touches on profound questions. If we send information that allows a future civilization to recreate us, are they us? If we encode human consciousness into a signal and transmit it across the stars, does that consciousness survive the journey? These are not just technical questions, they are philosophical ones, and they force us to think carefully about what we mean by identity, continuity, and existence. The 70th fact is that the challenge of time and distance is not just a barrier, it is also a filter. If intelligent civilizations are common, but the distances between them are so vast that contact is nearly impossible, then the Fermi paradox begins to make sense. The galaxy might be full of civilizations, but each one is isolated, surrounded by a bubble of space so large that signals from others have not yet reached them or have passed by unnoticed. This is sometimes called the isolation hypothesis, and it suggests that the universe is not silent because no one is speaking, but because the messages are lost in the vastness. We might be surrounded by voices, but they are so far away or so faint that we cannot hear them yet. Or perhaps we have heard them, but we did not recognize them for what they were. The universe is full of radio noise, from pulsars, from quasars, from the cosmic microwave background. Somewhere in that noise, there might be a signal, a message, a voice calling out, but finding it requires patience, technology, and luck. And so we continue to listen, scanning the skies, sifting through the static, hoping that one day we will hear something that cannot be explained, something that can only be a message from someone else. As you rest tonight, let these ideas settle. The universe is vast, far vaster than we can truly comprehend. The distances between stars are measured in light years, and the timescales involved are almost unimaginable. But we are not defeated by this. We are challenged. And as we build better tools, as we listen more carefully, and as we think more deeply, we inch closer to an answer. Somewhere out there, across the light years, there might be others looking up at their sky, asking the same questions we ask, wondering if anyone is listening. And maybe, just maybe, one day our signals will cross and the silence will be broken. Rest now. The universe is patient. It has waited billions of years, and it will wait a little longer while we search, while we hope, and while we dream of the day when we are no longer alone. As we near the end of this long, winding exploration, it is worth pausing to ask what it would mean if we never find alien life. What would it mean if, after decades or centuries of searching, after analysing countless exoplanets, after listening to the stars, after sending probes to every corner of the solar system, we find nothing? No microbes on Mars, no signals from the stars, no biosignatures in distant atmospheres, just silence, vast and unbroken. It is a possibility we must consider, not because we want it to be true, but because honesty demands that we face all outcomes, even the loneliest one. And if we are alone, if Earth is the only living planet in a universe of trillions of worlds, then the implications are staggering. It would mean that we are not just rare, but perhaps unique, the only place where the universe has opened its eyes and looked at itself. It would place an almost unbearable responsibility on us to preserve life, to protect this fragile world, and to ensure that the light of consciousness does not go out. But it would also be awe-inspiring, a reminder that we are part of something extraordinary, something that might happen only once in the history of the cosmos. The 71st fact is that the question of alien life is not just about biology or astronomy. It is about meaning. Humans have always sought meaning, in our lives, in our relationships, in our place in the universe. For most of history, we found that meaning in religion, in philosophy, in the stories we told about gods and heroes and the nature of existence. The question of whether we are alone is a modern version of those ancient questions. It asks whether the universe is populated or empty, whether life is common or rare, whether intelligence is a natural outcome of evolution or a singular accident. The answer, when we find it, will reshape our sense of who we are. If we find life, it will tell us that the universe is a place where biology flourishes, that we are part of a larger community of living things, and that the story of life is not confined to one small planet. If we do not find life, it will tell us that Earth is precious beyond measure, that every living thing here is irreplaceable, and that the universe, for all its grandeur, is in some sense empty without us. The 72nd fact is that even if we are alone, we might not always be. The universe is young, at least by the standards of its total lifespan. Stars like the Sun will continue to burn for billions of years, and smaller stars, red dwarfs, will burn for trillions. If we are the first civilization to arise, we might not be the last. In a few billion years, after we are gone, other intelligences might emerge, on Earth or elsewhere, and they will ask the same questions we are asking now. They might find our ruins, or the traces of our existence, scattered across the solar system, or encoded in radio signals still travelling through space. They might wonder about us, just as we wonder about those who might have come before. In this sense, the question of alien life is not just about the present. It is about the long arc of cosmic history, the rise and fall of intelligences across billions of years, and the possibility that the universe is a place where consciousness comes and goes, leaving behind only faint echoes. The 73rd fact is that the search for alien life has already changed us, regardless of what we find. It has expanded our sense of possibility. It has shown us that the universe is full of worlds, diverse and strange, each with its own story. It has taught us humility, reminding us that Earth is not the center of anything, that we are one planet among billions, orbiting an ordinary star in an ordinary galaxy. It has inspired us to think deeply about the nature of life, intelligence, and consciousness, and to ask questions that have no easy answers, and it has united us, if only briefly, in a shared sense of wonder. When we look at images of distant galaxies, or read about the discovery of a new exoplanet, or listen to the story of a spacecraft exploring the outer reaches of the solar system, we are reminded that we are all part of the same endeavour, the search for knowledge, for understanding, for connection. The search for alien life is a mirror, and in it we see ourselves, our hopes, our fears, and our place in a universe that is far larger and stranger than we can fully comprehend. The 74th fact is that the search will continue no matter how long it takes. Humans are curious by nature, and the question of whether we are alone is one we cannot set aside. We will build better telescopes, send more missions, develop new technologies, and refine our methods. We will look in places we have not yet imagined, and we will search for signs we do not yet know to look for. And even if we do not find life in our lifetimes, we will pass the search on to the next generation, and they will pass it on to the next, until one day, perhaps centuries from now, someone finds an answer. Or perhaps the search will continue indefinitely, a quest without an end, a question that defines us even if it is never resolved. There is a certain beauty in that, a recognition that the journey itself has value, that the act of searching is as meaningful as the discovery. The 75th fact is that the universe does not owe us an answer. It exists, vast and indifferent, governed by laws that care nothing for our desires or our loneliness. Stars burn, planets form, galaxies collide, and through it all, the universe continues, heedless of whether anyone is watching. We are the ones who ask questions, who search for meaning, who look up at the stars and wonder. The universe does not wonder, it simply is. And yet, in a strange way, we are the universe's way of knowing itself. We are matter that has become aware, particles arranged in such a way that they can contemplate their own existence. Every time we ask a question, every time we seek an answer, we are the universe engaging in an act of self-reflection. Whether we find alien life or not, whether we are alone or surrounded by others, this act has value. It is what makes us human, and perhaps what makes us worthy of the universe we inhabit. The 76th fact is that hope is not the same as certainty. We hope we will find alien life, and that hope drives the search. But hope must be tempered with realism. The universe is vast and the challenges are immense. We might find life tomorrow, or we might search for 1,000 years and find nothing. Both outcomes are possible, and we must prepare for either. This is not pessimism, it is honesty. It is the recognition that the universe does not bend to our will, and that some questions might remain unanswered, at least in our time. But hope is still important. It is what keeps us searching, what keeps us building telescopes and sending missions and asking questions. Hope is the belief that the search is worth it, even if the outcome is uncertain. The 77th fact is that if we do find alien life, the moment of discovery will likely be quiet and undramatic. It will not be a spaceship landing on the White House lawn. It will not be a booming voice from the sky. It will be a signal in the data, an unusual spectrum, a chemical signature that does not fit the models. It will be something small and subtle, noticed by a scientist studying a graph or reviewing observations from a telescope. And then, slowly, the realization will spread. Other scientists will check the data, run their own analyses, and confirm or refute the finding. Months or years might pass before the discovery is announced to the world, and when it is, when the news finally breaks that we have found evidence of life beyond Earth, it will not be the end of the story. It will be the beginning. A flood of questions will follow. What kind of life is it? How did it arise? Is it related to us? Can we learn from it? Can we communicate with it? The discovery will open new frontiers, new mysteries, and new challenges. It will be the start of a new chapter in the human story, one we can only begin to imagine. The 78th fact is that the search for alien life is, at its core, a search for connection. We are social creatures, and we seek connection in everything we do. We form families, communities, nations. We reach out to one another across languages, cultures, and continents. And now we are reaching beyond our planet, searching for connection on a cosmic scale. The search for alien life is the ultimate expression of this impulse, the desire to know that we are not alone, that somewhere out there is someone else who thinks, who wonders, who feels. Even if we never find them, the act of searching is a statement of hope, a refusal to accept isolation, a declaration that connection matters, even if it is with beings we can never meet. The 79th fact is that the universe is patient, but we are not. We live short lives, measured in decades, and we want answers within our lifetimes. But the universe operates on timescales of billions of years, and the search for alien life might take longer than any human lifetime. This is frustrating, but it is also humbling. It reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves, a project that spans generations, a quest that will outlive us. The scientists who search today are building on the work of those who came before, and their work will be carried forward by those who come after. The search for alien life is not an individual endeavour. It is a collective one, a thread that runs through human history, connecting past, present and future in a shared pursuit of knowledge. The 80th fact is that the search for alien life is also a search for ourselves. By asking what life is, where it can exist, and how it arises, we are also asking what we are, where we came from, and what our place in the universe might be. The search is a mirror reflecting our curiosity, our creativity, and our capacity for wonder. It is a reminder that we are capable of asking profound questions, of seeking answers that lie beyond the immediate concerns of daily life, and of dreaming of possibilities that stretch far beyond our own existence. In this sense, the search for alien life is one of the most human things we do. It is an expression of who we are at our best, curious, hopeful, and endlessly reaching for the stars. As we come to the close of this exploration, let these thoughts settle gently. The universe is vast, filled with mysteries we are only beginning to unravel. The question of whether we are alone is one of the deepest and most enduring questions we have ever asked, and it may be generations before we know the answer. But the search continues, patient and persistent, carried forward by those who wonder, who hope, and who refuse to accept that the universe has no more stories to tell. And as you drift into sleep tonight, know that somewhere, right now, telescopes are pointed at distant stars, spacecraft are journeying through the solar system, and scientists are analysing data, searching for signs of life. The search continues, and the universe, vast and silent, waits. Rest now. The question remains, echoing through the darkness, waiting for the day when at last we find an answer, or perhaps when the answer finds us.